Welcome to the Tech on Toast podcast. We are the home of hospitality tech. The Tech on Toast podcast is brought to you today by our friends at Lightspeed. The holidays are here and your restaurant is buzzing, but are you ready for the rush? The festive season is make or break time for many restaurants, filled with non-stop tableside service, kitchen chaos, and complex reservations. But what if you had a secret weapon? Well, Lightspeed is that weapon. It's the ultimate point of sale and payments platform that helps your team deliver seamless service and incredible experiences. Imagine your staff taking orders and payments right to the table with Tableside, or having your front and back of house perfectly in sync during peak hours. Wouldn't that be nice? Lightspeed gives you the tools to not only survive the holidays, but truly shine, all while saving time, reducing errors, and keeping guests coming back for more. This season, let your tech do the work for you. Close the year strong with Lightspeed Restaurant.
A feature like that.
Yeah, I think there's a lacking of fairground attractions with podcast studios. So
What we help to do is bring sales, labor, inventory, reviews, reservations all in one place.
same with the product, right? You can't just go and build the world. You can, but the failings will happen, right?
You want people to see this data as soon as possible. If that data is more than a day old, your team won't be able to do anything.
For the guys on the ground to know that Christian did this, got told this, did that, and produced that, it's invaluable.
Yeah, right. And so then they can't see what really matters.
I see a lot of that. Who do you serve? Everyone.
Yeah. And if you'd say I'm doing all four dimensions, it's crazy.
My old boss in Hard Rock Cafe said to me, shine a light on something and it will get better. Welcome to the next episode of Tech on Toast podcast. And today I'm delighted to be, I'm going to say rejoined because you're a former guest. It's, I'm going to get your surname right. Christian Mouysset?
Pretty close. Mouysset.
Oh, God. Say again?
Mouysset.
Mouysset.
Very good.
Very good.
Actually.
Yeah, thank you.
It's hard, it's French, right? So
yeah. Last week we had a French person on as well, and I also struggled and ruined her name. So it's I'm just going around offending people, which is great. Co-founder of Tenzo.
Yep.
And how are you, my friend?
Very well.
Thank you. I'm good. Well, I've been ill, actually. I've had some kind of weird coldy thing. But I was on the train this morning and everybody was doing it, so I felt like I was one.
You
with
were
all my
spreading like
I felt like we were incubating together, so it was all good. Look, and I think the reason we wanted to bring you back fairly rapidly was to talk about that we're working together again, which is great. And we want to talk about where Tenzo have got to, because last time we saw you was maybe 2 years ago.
Is it? I was trying to remember now. I think it was at least a year, if not 2 years.
And for any avid listeners, Christian arrived on the slide, which is you're still the only, you and Shireen Ritchie are the only two.
Shireen did it too.
She did it for service.
Awesome.
She arrived for her speaking panel by slide, which was even braver because it was in front of like 100 people sitting at the bottom of the slide. But you did it on your own, like a weirdo, just arrived.
Yes.
No one appreciated you.
No one appreciated it, except you. I told you, and then you.
I was happy.
Everyone on the podcast.
It's famous now. But so it's a famous moment.
I'm surprised you didn't choose a podcast studio based on a feature like that.
Yeah, I think there's a lacking of fairground attractions with podcast studios so far. Brewdog is the only one. But don't worry, we're back in service in February. You can come back again and go on the slide. So for anybody who doesn't know Tenzo and has never heard of you and lived under a rock, give us your best pitch for Tenzo.
The best pitch for Tenzo. I think we're referred to as the glue for the ecosystem.
I like that.
So really, it's that was coined by Jane O'Riordan. But like really, what we help to do is bring sales, labor, inventory, reviews, reservations all in one place, so that you don't have to jump through 5 different systems, pull Excels, and confuse everyone. It's just all in one place in real time, web and mobile, to make it easy for you and all of your GMs, area managers to engage with it.
You're just a nice guy, aren't you? Just helping the world.
Helping the world.
One bit of data at a time.
One bit of data and one meal at a time.
and your background, obviously, again, if no one knows, but you came from our world. It's quite weird in hospitality. Like if you haven't been there, man, it's like Vietnam. You don't know, man. You weren't there. If you haven't been in the trenches,
But I agree. I mean, I think so. Yeah, I come from the hospitality world. I set up Hummus Brothers, but I kind of agree with that, because I think from the outside, operating a restaurant feels so easy, right? And you're just like, what's so complicated here?
Stop crying.
Bring a plate. People are happy. They ask for more. You do it again. Yeah. Easy, right? Until you've done it, you realize how hard it is, right? And that's why I think I kind of agree with that. Unless you've been at Vietnam, you don't know.
It's a horrific comparison. But sometimes I felt like I was on a shift. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that. And I think part of the advent of tech and the reason why Tenzo exists, obviously, is that we've got a lot of data now, and I think I use the term waterboarding in data, like data waterboarding in a Fulham Shore.
We're going through the whole like.
I know. Well, I was with I'm not going to name drop. I was with Fulham Shore doing a AI thing with them in their head office, and I used the phrase data waterboarding, and Marcel was like, "Nice, that's an interesting way of explaining
That's
it."
how I feel.
And he did say that one will stick with me because that is what it feels like, and I think that operators are drowning in essence in a lot of data, or not even using it. I think there's two ways to look at it. Some people are trying to quantify it and use it. Some people are kind of just like,
but I
let's do
agree
the day job.
I mean, with the analogy of water, but I do agree. I think what typically people try to do is try to get everything.
Yeah.
Right? They set out saying on their data journey and say, I'm going to get every single piece of data that's going to be helpful to make this decision. And the problem is they're drowning in it, right?
Yeah.
And so then they can't see what really matters, right? Instead of, I think if you start from saying, okay, what's important here is getting my sales, getting my labor, getting my inventory, my reviews, reservations, that's already a lot. And even within those, thinking about, okay, well, what level of granularity do I need to go? We enable a lot of it, but I think there needs to be an understanding of where too much is, and especially when you're thinking about getting GMs to engage. What we talk a lot with people we work with is saying, listen, when it comes to surfacing that, think about 3 to 5 KPIs and really focus on that. And I was actually speaking to someone at Watch House the other day who said, we focused last quarter on 1 KPI only, right? Spend per labor hour. We just got everyone to focus on that, and the number moved ultimately.
I literally, that shine a light. My old boss in Hard Rock Cafe said to me, shine a light on something and it will get better. And I remember we used to have this thing about people at the front door not being ignored. And he used to say to us, if I ever see anybody for over 7 seconds at a front door, 7 seconds, without being spoken to, nodded at, engaged with, he goes, you'll be in big trouble. Yeah. So, and we had really bad scores on our mystery diners, and then we had all this data coming through saying we were really poor. I remember for a month, we just said, all we care about, and I mean it, is just the front door. And oh my God, we were so good. And the problem is with that, when you do that, obviously other things might go by the wayside.
But that's the first
But it just
impression.
shows. Yeah, it just shows. But that's the same with data, right?
Yeah.
That you have to start somewhere and then get it 100%. To a rhythm and then move on.
Exactly. If you don't start on something easy, and that's really actionable, that's the other thing is sometimes we hear people wanting to surface data where you're like, but does the GM know what they can do with this data? No, but it's interesting for them. I was like, well, yeah, but then you're giving up an opportunity to actually show them something actionable where they can actually and they understand what action they can do. What I love with your 7-second example there is that's the first impression your punter's going to have with you. If you screw that up, forget all the rest. You can be amazing for the rest. There's no point, right? But if you get that first impression really good, and that's why I think it's really understanding what is the one, or we say up to 5, and even that I feel like is a lot. It's like, what's that one? Shine the light on that. Make it real time, make them then understand what they can do. So what levers do they have to pull to like actually improve that? So spend per labor hour, obviously you make sure that you're not overspending on labor and that you're driving spend per guest, right? So you know the 2 levers you can pull on that, and then just get that bedded in till the point, and before you move on to the next one, make sure that there's been a win there so that the team feels like, yeah, we've done it. Let's now go on to the next one, right? You've got to build that foundation.
I think that cause and effect piece is missing a lot. But nature of the industry, time poor, very busy, lots of moving parts, and lots of macro issues still.
Yes.
And actually, I always say this phrase that it's evergreen, right? Problems in labour, food, all that. But I think exacerbated the last 5 or 10 years really by obviously the P word and everything else that's going on in the world. So I think it is difficult. And you've coined this phrase. Is it performance ops?
Yes.
That's where you describe. I really like that actually, because I think that's what ops is. I think it's about, like you just said, it's about performance. How do you guys view that in terms of what you're doing within the product?
To me, it's the reason why people look at data is to drive performance ultimately, right? Like you're not looking at the data for, that's
not vanity,
interesting.
is it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, and what's the point? You might like to look at the data and say, we're doing well, great. But really, you're wanting to get this data in your hands, in your senior leadership's hands, in your general managers, everyone, because you want them to improve that performance, right? And the in a restaurant, it's all about the ops to improve the performance, right? It's the ops team that's on the ground. What's amazing about the restaurant industry is you can actually impact these things today. I remember I would walk into my branches and I would motivate the team to say, hey, we're going to upsell the mint and ginger lemonade today. That's the one thing we're going to go after. And if we get 70% of people buying that, it's a 90% profit margin. That's going to make today profitable versus if we only get 30% to buy it, right? And not many industries can you do that where you can impact today,
100%.
right? Whether it's like tech, whether it's like media, whatever it is, it's very hard to impact today. You can do lots of things that will build over time, but literally today you've got 3 levers at least. You can drive your sales, you can make sure your labor's not too much, and you can make sure there's not too much wastage, right? Those are the every day you can.
Yeah, someone told me, we were talking. I had Epic Base on a brunch with us a while ago, and we talked about food cost, labor cost is probably what makes up, let's say, 60%.
Yep, that's what we see generally.
And all of a sudden, there's 40% left, and you haven't even paid the rent yet. So so it's just like, if you're not managing those two, I mean, it blows my mind when I meet people who are still on Excel, and I'm not being rude, but I'm just like, wow, who are still on Excel or still trying to do things manually. Smaller sites, fair enough. But for the bigger guys who are moving into or in growth, it's the biggest part of your business. If you can't control that and visually see it, and as you say, make an impact, I'm not sure that the future is for you.
Well, I kind of agree, right? Because I think I love Excel. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'll use Excel. There's lots of things you can do.
I've upgraded to Airtable until yesterday when it broke. That was everything broke yesterday, but yeah,
everything else did. Yeah, too. Even HMRC, right?
I was really happy about that.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
They could stay broken.
But so I agree. I have a lot of time for Airtable, and Excel too. But I think in a fast-paced environment, it's not the right tool. No. You want people to see this data as soon as possible. If that data is more than a day old, your team won't be able to do anything about it, right? They'll be saying, well, was that Tuesday or Wednesday? I was like, well, that's the same. It feels like the same shift. I don't remember what I did on Tuesday. But if you tell them after lunch, that was amazing. You did a great job of upselling, or whatever it was you set them a target to, and they do that well, you can give them the feedback, and that compounds so quickly.
And this is where I think a lot of businesses fail or miss, because full-timers often get all the information, right? Because they're around every day. They kind of fall into the categories of meetings and all that kind of stuff. The part-time heroes who keep, let's be honest, these whole industry going, who do 20 hours, 10 hours, 5 hours because they're at uni, going to be a lawyer, whatever they're going to be, those guys still need the information, right? Like you say, to move that shift forward. So I think having real-time data, being able to say, as you say, you're on a 3-hour shift, 12 till 3, we set what was your target? What were you selling? Lemonade?
Lemonade, mint and ginger lemonade.
Mint and ginger, that sounds nice. I need that today. Croaky voice. Mint and ginger lemonade. You can see that cause and effect straight away. And I think that just gives that power, because that is real power to the shift runner. Forget everybody else, forget the board and all those lovely people in the office. But for the guys on the ground to know that Christian did this, got told this, did that, and produced that, it's invaluable.
Yeah, and I think so it's difficult for people in head office to it's a little bit
generally.
Like what we were saying, generally.
I'm joking.
But people outside the industry or who've not been so much in the restaurants running them, I think it's like, well, I can see this data on Excel. It's easy. I mean, but they're sitting at a desk on probably like quite a wide screen generally, so they know how to use Excel, so they know what they're looking for. If you're in the restaurant, generally there's no space for like a big office.
You're on a table 10.
And you're on your mobile probably, right? And the GM probably has 5 minutes between doing 2 things. If he or she can't get to that information on their phone in real time quickly, as in simply not jumping through 15 hoops, I need to log in here, I need to log in there, pull that data, you're done. They're not going to do it, right? So that's why, we feel very strongly about this. It's about making the mobile app as easy as possible to use, making sure that you're not cluttering it with tons of data. Don't show all 10 locations of data. Show them their location. Tell them this is
that relevance is super key, right? And
super key.
We used to have a board pack in Carluccio's, which was 28 pages long, that we'd produce. I think it was maybe monthly or even weekly. I think it was, and we'd send it down to the area team. So the directors, I was one of, we send it down to the area managers. And then the area managers would probably forward it to GMs. And we would hope the area manager would say, oh, actually, do they really need a 28-page document around, all this detail? But again, it's not their job to make that decision. We should be giving them the relevant information in a way that they can consume it, digest it, and act on it. Yep. And I think that's where products like Tenzo can make a big difference. And I want to say very quickly, I saw a story in the news about a restaurant chain that are reducing tips for their teams to counteract some costs they've got to face in head office. I get it. But I wonder if you have a product like Tenzo, have you really overturned and looked under every stone? That's what I would really say to people: before you make critical decisions like that and you're going to affect your teams and their morale, have you looked at every kind of underneath every rock? And you guys can surface that, right?
Totally. And one thing that I'm particularly interested in, and obviously we're not going to have this podcast without talking about AI, otherwise,
I promise that. It's on my very last question.
But I think of AI, I think people talk about three things under AI, really. There is the two first buckets, which I think everyone will agree fall under AI, and the third one, which probably we won't agree falls under AI. Well, I don't think falls under AI, but
I'm not going to disagree with you.
But let's see. So the first one, machine learning. So we've been using machine learning to predict future sales for some time in Tenzo. So then, like taking your weather, your events, your historical data to predict what's going to happen next. Yeah. Every restaurateur needs to know, what am I going to make tomorrow to be able to run my shift, have the right level of labor and inventory. Then there's kind of the second bucket, the LLMs, right? So the chat GPTs of the world. I think so. The first use case we're going after that is really summarizing your data. So you've now got sales, labor, inventory, reviews, reservations here. There's too much data, right? And this is where I think this is an application I'm excited about, because here the GM can't ingest all that information. They need to know, what are the three things I need to know about today or about yesterday that I can do something different today that is going to impact it, right? And with LLMs can summarize all this information and really give you that sense. And we're connecting that to targets and to jobs that they can do, so that, for example, if it says to you, hey, your wastage is too high, that then you can go and set a target for that, so that the GMs get alerted on this, so that there's something they can do. It's not just hey, there's a piece of information. There's a specific action you can take on it, right? And then the third bucket, which I don't think is AI, but often people talk about it, is automation, right? There's a lot that falls under that, where you can automate.
I think it's common. It's this trend thing, isn't it, that people want to put it in that bucket, but obviously automation's been around. Well, it is different because it's not. Anyway, we won't get into the detail.
But I think there are ways where you're automating and using AI, but I think there's also, for example, we automate your end of day report or your weekly report, where we're literally
which is a trigger, right? This
trigger.
Does this and that. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And then there's no AI on that. There's just literally.
But there could be at the end, or there might reason, because of the information on that report, there might be some reasoning then that causes someone to do something else, or a bot to do something else,
or chatting with a bot, right? Yeah. Which I think the chat example is an interesting one. That you know how on ChatGPT you have under the box here, check any important information.
This is all bull.
It could be complete bullshit.
Yeah.
And I use it every day. It's so helpful in many applications. When it comes to actually looking for a very specific number, that's what we're trying to. The experiments we're running is really making sure we can surface something that's super accurate.
That would be an operator's fear, wouldn't it? That actually the data that you're querying isn't data like a recipe. A recipe has some granulation in it, but it's pretty general, right? And there's probably 20 or 30 bits. A P&L or a board report might have 300 lines of data in, and that then becomes there's a mastery around that, isn't there? Get the AI to be able to really dig into that and be accurate and forecast accurately off the back of that.
Totally.
Which I think is where a lot of operators, maybe the fear still sits, or maybe if they're unsure. I'm sure you get it when people talk to you about, when you're going through a process with someone.
Yeah.
I'm sure they query, that's one of the first things. Is it going to be accurate, Christian? Is it?
Yeah. And I think but it's true, right? Even if you're pulling data from various systems, right? You've got integrations, and that's something we've spent a lot of effort really figuring out how to get that super accurate, and that you can and you trust it. And we want to do the same thing when it comes to being able to do that with AI, because ultimately, if you're going to use something and you can't trust it 99 times out of 100, then what's the point?
Right? Yeah, well, and adoption will just fall off the cliff, right? No one will use it. And Mr. Trump in America, bear with me here, is announcing himself as king at the moment in the States, which I love. And you're actually the king of the integration nation, I would like to say. So in terms of, because when I worked for DeliverX, everyone gets bored of me saying for about 5 minutes a while ago, just after the pandemic, and they were at that point, they probably had the most integrations on the block. They were doing some crazy stuff. But you guys are there, aren't you? You are like the king of the integrations. And how important, I see you at a lot of partner events and see you kind of always on LinkedIn attending these things, which must be exhausting for you. But it's really important to you, isn't it? Obviously for the product, but relationships generally mean a lot to you, don't they, in terms of what you're doing with your product?
I think when it comes to integration, and there's the kind of for a better word, the human side. So there's, you need to have a connection with the people that explain why do they want this, why do they need this. Most of these platforms now don't just give up their APIs to the next
value.
person. There's value, but also because they know that there'll be questions from that person. So, I pulled this from the API, didn't really return, then, so they know that there's an effort that's involved with that. So they want to do it with people who understand what they're doing and they trust them. So there's kind of that human element. And then there's a technical element. And the technical element, there's kind of two bits to it. Is the API that you've been given working? Does it return what it should? And we've often seen where we've had to go back to people and say, hey, there's a bug in your API. Could you change this, etc.? And then can you build it in a way that you understand how it's going to be used? Because, so for example, there's always this example of how granular do you pull the data. So let's say you were specking out what your data warehouse should have in it, and you want it to then put Power BI or something on top of it. You'll have to tell the person putting together that I want to pull spend per guest. And say, fine. If you don't specify that actually you want that by hour, and you might want that also by revenue center, day part, whatever. They might just we'll pull the whole day number, and then you're like, oh, that's good. Well, why are we down 5%? I'd actually just like to see is it in the morning or the afternoon? And it straight away, because you haven't thought about that at the beginning, adding it later is a nightmare, right? And this is a simple example. There's much more complex ones, and that's where I think really understanding what you're building it for, and because we only work with restaurateurs, that really matters, because we are then able to say, don't worry about thinking of the 100 use cases. We've thought about them, and we'll build it in a way that you'll be able to get that data out of it.
Yeah, and I think obviously the nature of your product is you are the piping, I suppose, to people's data. And I think what did you call? What is it? The glue.
The glue.
She called you. Jen called you. So the glue, and I think that's really necessary. And we work with, I think last count, Gracie, I don't know, 150 some stupid amount of partners in different elements, and you see the need for a product like yours that can tie this stuff together, because no matter how good the individual products get, no matter how much scope they cover, they need a place where they can kind of all come together and be one, because the all-in-one versus best-in-class conversation won't go away. And someone, I had someone on the podcast from Frederick from Embargo the other week, and he talked about I want to be the best. I want to be the best-in-class all-in-one. Does that make sense? So
kind of hard.
So that, but it was interesting, right? That's that, and I you see the advantages for operators, kind of, we want one login, all that kind of stuff. But the reality is, as I always say, if your leg's broken, you want the leg guy. You don't want the head guy working on your leg. So
not a good thing.
It might go badly. In my case, the head probably needs the leg guy. But do you know what I mean? And I think that still remains. I don't think that will change anytime soon.
No.
What do you think about that? Because I do that conversation, because you work with all of them, right? You can work with all these guys.
I mean, I agree. I mean, the best in breed versus all-in-one will be a debate that will be there, not just in restaurant tech, but in all tech across the board. And I think there's kind of this pendulum that keeps going back. People say, oh yeah, let's roll it up, and but then we can't get things to be good enough in each different part, so we split out. We saw it with Gmail, and Google started doing Google Sheets and slides and everything, and they build a big productivity suite, and then it gets broken out again, with Superhuman as the email client. And it's right, because as you start trying to do everything, the problem is not the number of engineers you can send it. If Google can sign as many engineers as possible. The problem is how much can you think about deeply the product on that specific feature, right? And so I think about it as a 4D kind of chess, or 4D puzzle, really. You've got to, and if you're trying to do all in one, you have all 4 dimensions. Dimension 1 is, are you just going to be in one geography or multiple? If you're going to be just in one, it makes it a lot easier, because, for example, if you're doing labor in the UK versus labor in the US, you need to think about labor in 50 states.
Right? Labor anywhere in Europe, impossible.
Exactly, right? It gets crazy. So the geography, and it works for all of the tools, but so there's the geography. Number 2 is, what sub-vertical are you in? Are you just going to go after coffee shops, or are you going to go for hotel F&B, or are you going to go for fine dining?
And I think that's a really common mistake. We see a lot of products come to market, so we tend to talk to a lot of people who are just arriving because they want a place to be and hang out with people who are like you, right? And I see a lot of that. Who do you serve? Everyone.
Yeah.
And on immediate, I'm like, hello.
It's crazy, right? Because the coffee shop is not going to need the same thing as the fine dining restaurant. And so that's the second dimension. The third dimension is really, what tool are you going after? Are you just doing POS, or you're doing POS and inventory, or you're doing POS and, etc. Right? So the more you add there, the more complex it becomes. And then the fourth dimension is, are you serving the small guy, the medium guy, the big guy, right?
Yeah.
And if you'd say, I'm doing all four on all four dimensions, it's crazy, because then you will get, and that's why I don't think you can be the all-in-one, because, or then you have to say, okay, I'm not going to do geography, I'm just going to stay in one geography, or I'm just going to do coffee shops. Yeah, you could become the all-in-one for coffee shops in the UK. That might work. But if you're trying to do that globally for all sub-verticals...
it's like sacrifice, isn't it? It's like some things in Hard Rock, they take you in a room when you first start in Orlando, they fly you out there, and they give you a glass jar and loads of rocks, and the rocks have labels on them, and you have to put the rocks in the jar, but obviously you can't smash the rocks, so you can't fit them all in. So you have to pick between love, life, career, whatever you want to put in. And it was interesting because we were with a bunch of Americans, they were all crying while they were doing it, they were quite emotional. Europeans were just smoking with an espresso going, whatever, I don't care about my family, I'm not putting them in. So just put career in, that was it. All of them put career.
Nothing else.
Yeah, nothing else. That's all they cared about.
In,
but it was just, but it's those sacrifices. Same with the product, right? You can't just go and build the world. Well, you can, but the failings will happen, right? Or you'll have those challenges that you otherwise wouldn't have. Right, I'm wittering. So I want to ask you, because before I let you go, because we did bring Christian in, literally, did you come on your line back or not?
No, this time I just came on the tube, man.
I've been telling everyone, I told Gracie he's coming on his line bike. There's a line bike parked outside when I got here. I went, no, be Christian.
No, not today.
I've become, because of you, I've become an advocate.
It's great.
I've done 70k in the last 6 weeks on it.
Bloody
honestly,
you're really going for it.
Yeah, I love it.
The thing is, what drives me crazy when you arrive to your destination and there's no space.
I know.
It's like, come on, guys.
Or you go to where you can't park.
Yeah.
I do that a lot. So now I've started parking too far away. Anyway, this is not for a podcast. But the industry generally, what you're seeing, you speak to a lot of customers, obviously, prospects and current customers. How is it feeling? Is there a positivity? Is there buoyancy? Or do you feel like we're still in for a bit of a fight for the next 12 months or so?
I think there's always the restaurant industry. There's always a bit of a fight, right? Yes. Like, especially, there's the
we both did a fist one. Yeah.
Kind of, but there's also this desire to overcome it, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's always this positive. We were hosting a dinner the other day, and around the room we had all. A lot of F&B innovators who all happened to be women. I was the only man there, so that was a bit awkward. But
my dinners aren't like that.
and I really felt that there was a lot of positivity, and I think that comes from generally, people they're seeing a lot of tools that are coming to market that are helping them. That I think there's a lot of tools now that are actually thinking, how do I actually solve the problem? And not going from top down, more like bottoms up. So I think there's a lot of positivity.
That has definitely shifted, hasn't it, over the last, I'd say, 18 months type. Yeah. I think the product, people are getting smart with the product in terms of their, and I think probably because the feedback from the ground, right, is slowly surfacing into product, which obviously takes time because you can't iterate. I suppose you can iterate daily, but I think that feedback from the universal industry takes time to get back into product. And I feel like particularly there's people telling me we're getting ROI, which I think is always the hardest thing to prove, right?
Right, I agree. And that was part of that conversation. We were hearing that. But I also think that, we have another budget coming up. Let's see what happens there. I do feel like there is a bit of a groundswell from the restaurant industry saying, hey, let's put our point of view forward. We're the third largest industry in the country. We've got a lot going for it. We should be having, a voice here. And I think that is happening. Jane O'Riordan's doing this innovation lab, which I think is interesting in terms of really trying to understand, how do we really solve these problems for people here? Yeah. And so I think there's a lot of optimism at that level, but we're not out of the way. I don't, no one's going there. Oh, there's going to be an easy,
it's not the 90s, is it? Was it the 90s that was good? I can't remember. The 90s was great.
The late 90s, early 2000s.
I don't know, was it late? Yeah, whenever the boom, early 2000s,
maybe,
wasn't it?
Maybe it was that.
Yeah, I'm old enough to remember all of that very well. Look, super fascinating to see you. We're helping you. We're working with you guys at the moment. We've just hired a lady called Jo Morgan, who's kind of helping us get into hotel world, which is already blowing my mind. And you guys are also doing that with Mark, right?
Yeah, we love I think there's a phrase I heard recently where hoteliers I've realized that their F&B is actually not just a cost center, but they can do something. And they're talking about turning their restaurants inside out. So getting people walking by the hotel to come in that are not staying
there. Scott from Alden, who's lovely.
Yeah, I love Scott.
And Scott always, that's his thing, right? He talks about F&B and how these guys should use that space. And I think when it comes to rooms versus F&B, it's so hard for them because they just look at the profit in rooms and think, why should we bother? But definitely, it's money, right? It's low-hanging fruit sitting there. So that's super interesting. How do people get hold of you if they want to, when you're not on a line bike or you're not at a partner dinner?
Well, I'll take a picture on the phone and send it to you.
Don't do that on your bike. I'll get in trouble.
GoTenzo.com, or you can email me, Christian@gotenzo.com.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for coming in, my friend, to our green
Pleasure
studio.
to see you.
I should have made it orange, shouldn't I?
Yes.
Next time, we'll make you orange.
We
Not
like
you,
green
it.
too.
But yeah, thank you. That was Christian, everyone from Tenzo. A little round of applause. See you later.
Thank you very much.